Are you sitting comfortably, children? Never let it be said that a head full of ideas is not a show for all the family. This is Chris Gregory. This is Bob Dylan podcast, Head Full of Ideas. And for this episode, I must warn those of a nervous disposition. You may well wonder whether to switch off now. Okay? Well, you're still there, aren't you? Okay, this is perhaps very scary or really very charming. It's called Wiggle Wiggle, a bedtime story. Okay, let's be honest, folks. There are times when being a Bob Dylan fan is what you might call challenging. All the tired horses in the sun. They killed him with an angelic children's choir. Oh, little town of Bethlehem. Well, yeah, the bit in We Are the World where Stevie Wonder has to teach Bob how to sing like Bob. Had a Dream About Your Baby, the song from Hearts of Fire where he's playing the part of a washed-up rock star, but the song is meant to be bad, right? Wiggle Wiggle is certainly a song you can wiggle your ass to. It begins with a nice little rhythmic shuffle, but wastes no time before pounding out an infectious rockabilly riff. Slash from Guns N' Roses plays a stinging lead guitar part. But then Bob starts singing. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle like a gypsy queen. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle all dressed in green. And so it goes. There are 46 wiggles in the 3-minute song. We certainly get the message. At the end of the variable 1980s, Bob Dylan, aided by producer Daniel Lanois, put out the revelatory Oh Mercy. Now, just over a year later, he was back in the studio, well, actually a whole lot of studios, under the supervision of Don Was, to record 1990's Under the Red Sky. There were a few similarities between the albums. On both of them, virtually all the lyrics were composed in short, rhyming couplets. Under the Red Sky included Born in Time and God Knows, both outtakes from Oh Mercy. But the sound of this record was completely different. It was basically old-style rock. George Harrison was on it, Elton John, Bruce Hornsby, Al Cooper pounded the Joanna on several tracks. Somewhere in there, the elaborately mustachioed David Crosby supplied backing vocals. It was a rag bag. Quite a few of the songs were like weird nursery rhymes. Cat's in the well and the barn is full of the bull. 2 by 2 they went into the ark. 10,000 men dressed in Oxford blue. The title track is a children's song about ecological disaster. Probably. 2 by 2 is a sacrilegious children's song about duality. Maybe Cats in the Well is a children's song about the Gulf War. Possibly. Was all this some kind of secret code? Was Dylan experimenting with baby talk as a new form of expression? Thankfully, Dylan leaves a clue on the album sleeve. It says, "Dedicated to Gabby, Gabby Goo," it said on the sleeve. So, perhaps all of this had been written for little Gabby, his pet name for his daughter. There is a story that around this time Bob turned up at Gabby's nursery and entertained the wee boys and girls with a few very ancient folk songs. What he played is not known. Buffalo Skinners, perhaps? Stagger Lee, maybe? Not surprisingly, the Tots found him a bit scary. Soon after this album came out, he recorded a version of This Old Man for a Disney Kids album in his croakiest voice, sounding just like that weird old uncle you only saw at Christmas. But even scarier, you might say. Dylan was fond of Wiggle Wiggle. He played it live over 100 times between 1990 and 1992. It often got the punters up off their seats to, well, wiggle along. Sometimes it was extended with extra guitar solos. Bob quite often forgot the words or got them mixed up. In the early 90s, he seemed to be taken to the stage in whatever state of mind he happened to be in before he went on stage. Hey, if all else failed, you could always wiggle. Wiggle Wiggle was voted worst Dylan song ever by Rolling Stone listeners. The critics sharpened their pens. They went into super hyperbole mode, just trying to describe how absolutely, awfully, dreadfully bad it was. Oh, they were loving this. Nothing better than bringing down an idol. What was Dylan doing, they mused. Was he just being lazy? Was he drunk or coked up, suffering from early onset dementia? Had he just thrown some words up in the air to see where they would fall? So, what is Wiggle Wiggle really about? Some kind of surreal juxtaposition of shifting narratives? A postmodern cubist examination of late 20th century angst? No, boys and girls. Wiggle Wiggle is simply a children's song about sex. Oh my God! Oh my God, you are thinking. Perhaps it should be censored, perhaps it should be banned for corrupting the morals of preschool minors with those seedy, lascivious lyrics. Well, the thing is though, how do you explain stuff to your children when they ask those embarrassing questions, folks? In the old days, perhaps when Bob was a nipper, they talked about the birds and the bees. But then we had Masters and Johnson and the 1960s and all that. You could try drawing some diagrams and buy them boy and girl rabbits. You could begin by saying, when a mummy and daddy love each other very much, or wiggle, wiggle, wiggle like a gypsy queen. Well, that's a pretty sexy beginning. Gypsy queens certainly do wiggle, they say, dressed in green. If you wiggle enough, the moon really might turn blue. You can wiggle on your hands and knees. You can wiggle to the front, wiggle to the rear. Then you'll be buzzing like a swarm of bees. You'll get pretty worked up, so you'll be shaking like a bowl of soup. You'll roll together like a rolling hoop. If you wiggle loud enough, you can raise the dead. You can get so excited that you vomit fire. You're getting the idea now? How about wiggle till it whispers, wiggle till it hums, wiggle till it answers, wiggle till it comes. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, as they say. And then we get the even more suggestive ending. You rattle and shake until you get satin and silk. There's a big fat snake and a pail of milk. You see what I mean, Gabby? Does that answer your question? That's how you got here. Yes, Daddy, she yawns. Whatever you say, Daddy. Now, Gabby, Dad is tired. Time to climb the wooden stairs to Bedfordshire. Okay, Daddy. Just one more thing, Daddy. Yes, Gabby. You won't be coming to the school to play those scary songs again, will you, Daddy? Of course not, Gabby. Although my friend Julie, she thought you were pretty funny, old man. And, Daddy... Yes, Gabby? How can a man be called Lead Belly? Night, night, Gabby. Hope the bed bugs don't bite. Okay, so apologies for the accent at the end. I hope you've enjoyed that one. This is a very short version of A Head Full of Ideas. That's, of course, because its subject matter is so profound, you're going to have to spend the extra time thinking about it. Okay, do check out my website, chrisgregory.org, where at some point you'll find a text version of this and some of the other stuff from this season of the podcast. Might be interested in my book, Determined to Stand, The Reinvention of Bob Dylan, which is on sale at the website and at all good bookstores, except they're closed. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Brush your teeth, say your prayers. Night night.